But my beats, they are hard.
To another edition of the BCSN SportsWrap. My name is Bryan Fulford, and joining me, my partner in the backcourt, A.D. Drew. Drew, how you doing, my man?
Doing all right, Dr. B. How you doing today?
I am doing all right, man. What are you doing? Sign language there? What you got going on?
Obviously, you haven't rewatched our podcast. I do that signal every time we get on the air. So.
Okay. Shouting out somebody, huh? Okay, I got you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, hey, look, we've got another show for you, which we've obviously during the summer months, it's always hard, I think, to find show-related topics. So this one is, I feel like, more of a news and notes kind of conversation with some different things that have happened over the past week. Some things have happened very fresh as of when we're recording this. Other things have happened over the course of the past week. So we're going to kind of go through some of those news and notes. Coming up a little later in the show, we will have a conversation with Michael Coker of BlackCollegeNines.com, which is one of the premier websites that covers HBCU baseball. And of course, the Major League Draft happened just the other day, actually this past week. And so that's one of those things that Major League Baseball was definitely, well, they're having troubles just getting off the ground in terms of a season, but in terms of their draft for the future, they were definitely affected by COVID-19. So we will get into that conversation with him. I want to remind you to follow us on Twitter and at Facebook and Instagram, Periscope, at MyBCSN1 is where you can find us. Individually, you can find Drew at BCSN Drew. You can find me at DRB365. That's where we are on Twitter. And of course, if you're on YouTube as you're watching this, MyJBN Online, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube feed. We are part of the Jericho Broadcast Networks, and we've got a big launch happening on Friday, on Juneteenth. The Jericho Broadcast Networks, the Jericho Digital Television will be coming back, as well as our radio shows and things. And so we're looking forward to a big upcoming weekend. And so you want to make sure to stay locked in with us so you can be fully aware of what's going on there. So, AD, let's get into this, as we've got plenty of news and notes going on in just the NCAA as well as in the HBCU world. And I'm going to start with this announcement from the NCAA D1 committee, who just a few days ago, and we're recording this on the weekend, so I think this was about Thursday when this happened, but the D1 committee passed a 6-week practice plan in order to kick off the football season on time. Now, this is the Football Oversight Committee that passed this practice plan, and the plan actually has to now head over to the D1 Council for approval. That'll happen on Wednesday this week. And so what they're proposing is that during this period, schools are going to be allowed 8 hours per week of strength and conditioning, 6 hours per week of team meetings, and 6 hours per week of walkthroughs, which gets to 20 hours per week. The committee clarified that schools can have flexibility in determining how to split up that time, provided they do not exceed 4 hours per day. So, AD, as you're familiar with the normal schedule of when fall practices start, usually get about 4 weeks. Seems like they've added on a couple of weeks for this. What are your thoughts on this plan by the oversight committee, and do you think it'll pass the D1 Council?
It should pass the council. I really don't see any holes in it in theory. The one thing that you're gonna have to look at is obviously your quote unquote voluntary workouts that are not covered by this. You know, when athletes work out outside of the realm of coaches, and I'll put air quotes around that voluntary. They're listed as voluntary, but the guys pretty much know they need to show up and participate in those during those periods. I'm also curious to see as to since football is the hot topic, what the football is going to look like as far as how many padded practices they're going to be allowed, what type of scrimmaging are they going to be allowed to do as part of that? You know, is it going to look sort of like spring practice, or is it going to look like normal fall camp, or some combination of the two when you get to something that's sport specific? And you know, also, I'm not as familiar with this, Brian. Are the other sports such as baseball and some of the other sports able to take care of, excuse me, take advantage of this, or is this just the fall sports that are coming back, such as volleyball and such as football?
Yeah, good question. I mean, seeing as how this is just coming from the Football Oversight Committee, I would imagine that they're making this pitch to the D1 Council with a clear indication that the Power Five, this is what I think they're setting the table for the Power Fives. This is to help the Power Five programs get started and get back on track. How this relates to everybody else, I think still in the air. You know, volleyball, other sports. I mean, hell, who knows? But I think football being the big cash cow, and if you can get football going, I think you can sort of create some rules and some methods of doing things for your other programs after football gets going. And so I think in terms of giving them the 6 weeks, kind of adds the extra 2 weeks that schools did not get for spring practice. And, you know, so it's interesting. It's a D1 committee that's me, and again, this is for Power Fives. There's no indication here that HBCUs, even though the ones in Division I, the SWAC, MEAC, you know, Hampton, Tennessee State, they can take advantage of this if they want, but I mean, they've got bigger issues in terms of just whether they're going to even have students on campus to do this. So I think it is interesting to see what happens, but I think this is sort of the first step in getting the football season to kick off.
And I'm going to take that further, and I'm glad you brought that up. You know, well, obviously, question number one is normally kids are in school during a portion of these sessions, which means that housing, meals, et cetera, are not coming out of the athletic budget. They're coming out of the normal tuition fees and things that are associated with school. Right now, a lot of these kids may not be in school, but that means that schools will have to house, feed, et cetera, these kids for up to 6 weeks, whereas normally that may be a 2 to 3 week window until school starts back. That the athletic departments have to take care of that. when we look at this as far as our Division I HBCUs, can they afford to house these kids for 6 weeks, those 65 scholarship athletes for 6 weeks, plus any, walk-ons and everybody else? So you're talking, what, 80 athletes maybe, 75, 80 athletes? Throw in volleyball players that are going to probably have a similar plan. And then when you talk about our Division II schools, you've got 36 scholarship athletes. Of course, it takes more than you've got more than 36 players out there. Those scholarships are divided up by 2, by 3 to get to that 60 or 70 players that you see on the football field. So financially, what implications is going to be for the HBCU athletic budget, and has this already been accounted for in one of those proposed 3 or 4 budgets that everybody has right now?
Yeah, no, good. Hey, good point. And again, I reemphasize, this is strictly done for the benefit of the Power Fives, the programs that have the money that can do this. And everybody else, it's almost like, hey, you can eat after everyone else has had their meals served at the table. And so once this is set in place, and if this gets approved later this week, I think then you'll start seeing now administrations, athletic programs, coaching staffs are all going to get together and figure out, how can we make this happen? Is this something that applies to us? So that'll be interesting to see. All right, let's move on to our next story, which sort of has an impact as it relates to the start of the year. Okay, so I thought you had the next one, AD. You zoned out.
I'm sorry, I forgot. South Carolina State is set to begin its fall semester a little bit earlier than normal, about 2 weeks earlier than normal, as they will begin classes on August 10th of this year. Obviously, students must complete and register and make all their financial arrangements prior to returning to campus. And as of right now, they will have an on-campus option for the kids, which is one of the things that the NCAA said. In order for you to have football, you have to have students on campus. So while some of the details are not complete, the goal from starting this early is to get things done before Thanksgiving. I'll leave your thoughts on that, Brian.
Well, I'm going to applaud South Carolina State for making this move. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know if I've seen any reports from any other HBCUs, and I apologize if they have, but in terms of starting their fall semester and an actual date, I don't know if I've seen other schools make that announcement. So South Carolina State, I feel like, is ahead of the curve, but I think they've seen a model, and I've talked about this in other places, that Indiana University, for example, in the Big Ten, they have, and this was about a month ago when they released a statement stating that they're starting their classes in early August with the plan of having students off campus by right before Thanksgiving break. There are no fall breaks. There's no spring breaks. Once they send kids home for the end of the semester and Thanksgiving, which South Carolina State also looks like they want to try to have students off campus by Thanksgiving. At Indiana, they're planning to not have students come back until February. And then they'll go straight through from February to the end of the semester, no spring break. And the thought behind that, I think, is to keep students from venturing into other places. And so if South Carolina State is, although there's no announcement on when they would come back, it seems like South Carolina State is employing a similar tactic here in terms of getting kids on campus, where you sort of can, I hate to say supervise, but at least you have a way of knowing where everyone is at, and you can sort of enact certain things on campus, whether it be online classes because maybe you have Wi-Fi connections within the dorms and things of that nature. And you can maybe limit classroom sizes. You can do a lot more things if you have all the kids in one place. So I applaud South Carolina State for making that move. Question is, will we see other HBCUs go a similar route? Are they able to, based on what's going on in their state? And that may be another factor as well. I don't know what all is in place in the state of South Carolina, but that could also be a factor. So I think it's a good move for South Carolina State. It's proactive in an uncertain environment. So it remains to be seen whether we'll see other schools adopt a similar start date.
All right. One thing I did want to bring out with that is I know I saw a plan by Florida A&M. I watched their press conference. It may have been a Zoom call on Facebook. I don't know what it was, but they have set forth a plan. But I think their start date is going to be more the traditional date in mid-August, mid to late August.
Okay. Well, hey, we'll see. Yeah, because the traditional date is what you kind of late mid-August.
The 20s in August 20s or somewhere like that is usually when most people start.
About a couple of weeks before Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. Okay. You usually get about 2 weeks in before the Labor Day weekend. And I will say this, they're talking about spring. You could pretty much start right after King Day and go through till mid to late April. Take a day or two off for Easter and pretty much get everything in that you need to get in.
Yeah, it'll be interesting as you mentioned FAMU, and other schools will all have the debate about homecomings. Will you have homecomings? Will you be inviting mass numbers of people from outside your campus into your homecoming and your school community? That almost seems counterproductive if you're trying to limit where people are going, especially the students, and then you're going to create a homecoming scenario where you've got people coming in from all over the place potentially. It almost, it's going to sound, I don't know, maybe I don't want to be that guy, but this might not be the year to have big, huge homecomings like we're used to, just because of the COVID-19, and if you believe in the doctor's thoughts that there will be a second spike later in the fall. Just something to consider.
I mean, what you gonna do with your homecoming concert, your homecoming king and queen? Forget all the other stuff. The kids look forward to the parade on Saturday morning.
You know what? To be honest, as an undergrad, I never went to the morning parade. Never.
Well, don't worry, I haven't grown person either.
Too early in the morning after a long Friday night. That's all I'm gonna say.
But like I said, for the kids, the homecoming parade is the big thing for the kids and the locals, and then all the food vendors and.
Hey, 2021, when we're hopefully in a COVID-19 less world, we can go back to doing all that. All right. Right now, we're trying to get a few things back on the plate. We can't have everything. We have to decide what do you want to have this fall. People have to decide that. I mean, I maintain a lot of people.
I want to have safety, but I want my homecoming.
And you can't have both.
That's the typical matter.
You can't have both. You get one or the other. You want safety or do you want homecoming? You want football or do you want homecoming? You can't have both. I'm sorry.
This may be a question for another day, Bryan. What would be impacted? What's that?
No, look, it's the same thing I said about football. We were talking about this in the spring. When they were telling us to stay inside and keep our mask on, we'd see things start to drop, and we did. Now what do you see? You see people out and about. People don't have masks on. They're going to restaurants. They're eating. What are you starting to see again? Numbers spike again. I'm telling you, y'all don't want football. Anyway, let's move on to the next news item.
Just let me throw this out, and then we'll move on. This is a question for another show. What will be impacted more, homecoming or classics?
Ooh.
We'll say that for another show. We'll say that one for another show.
That's a good one. That's a good one. All right. This happened on Friday. Came out of the state of Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis, right here in my home state of Florida, he signed the College Athlete NIL compensation bill, which NIL, name, image, and likeness is what NIL is short for. Florida is now the third state, joining California and Colorado, to pass a NIL law targeting current NCAA rules that restrict college athlete compensation for their name, image, and likeness. Now, the law that was signed in Florida increases the urgency for the NCAA to act, because this Florida law goes into effect July 1, 2021. That's actually 18 months ahead of the planned legislation date in California and Colorado, which I think was 18 months. That would be December of 2022. So there apparently are about 24 more states working on similar legislation. This is a quote from Governor DeSantis. He said, quote, "I just want to say Florida is leading on this. And if you're a blue chip high school recruit out there trying to figure out where to go, I think any of our Florida schools is a great landing spot." AD, what are your thoughts on Governor DeSantis, dropping and signing the College Athlete NIL compensation bill?
FAMU, Edward Waters, Bethune-Cookman, Florida Memorial. If y'all don't get y'all recruiting game up and get these recruits in there, it's gonna be your fault as far as the HBCUs are concerned. You have a distinct advantage over any other HBCU in the nation, because the other two states do not have HBCUs. That's number one. Number two, I still, without some type of national legislation or some type of meeting of the minds, I think we're going down a dangerous, slippery slope. You know, what's the difference between a name, image, and likeness? You know, with the Zion Williamson scenario or Reggie Bush scenario in the past. You know, I still want to see how this is going to be regulated so that it does not get out of control. I think it's a good thing. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good thing, but what's going to be the factor to keep this thing from getting out of control? And then you got an athlete at Florida State. Then you go across the railroad track, and you've got an athlete at FAMU. They're doing something. Their jerseys is in Bill's bookstore, or somebody's bookstore, or whatever. Would those jerseys be priced the same?
Well, first off, you sound like you are a lobbyist for the SEC, trying to when you're sitting there talking about national legislation, because that's exactly what those big conferences are trying to get done in Congress. You know, they're trying to create those a national discussion, because the NCAA, because they don't want it to be done state by state. They want federal guidelines, because probably like you just suggested, they understand that it will be, the wild, wild west, which is kind of laughable given, all the stuff that goes on anyway. It's just like, I would say this.
Under the table.
Right. Yeah. Look, I think here's the things that, and people forget this, with the NCAA, they did pass this legislation to allow for this, but there are strict rules that, if I recall, limit the use of anything related to the school. So it's like, A.D. Drew, you play for Florida A&M University, you can't, if you get a deal at Joe's Car Wash to sign autographs, they can't promote it as you who are a Florida A&M player. This is, it can't have any
but I can have my green and gold, my green and orange plain jersey on, and signing pictures of with my face on it, and my just
If it is
like you see on the.
if it's a plain jersey that doesn't have anything related to FAMU, I mean, sure, but sure, if that's how you want to do it, sure, as long as it doesn't have any affiliation with the school or the NCAA. I think I think the good correlation I read in here, I don't think we're talking about moving towards unions, but I think when you talk about think about the NFLPA league organizations and how they negotiate contracts with say trading card companies or maybe video games, being able to gather up a group of college athletes in that manner that allows for trading cards or hobby type things to be done. There's opportunities there. There's opportunities for some financial incentives to be done and some revenue streams outside of what we might be thinking of as Joe's Rib Shack is gonna have the front line from your favorite university is gonna be here at Joe's Rib Shack eating ribs with us. Come down and eat some ribs. I think it's gonna be a little more than that. And I think that's where, but you don't want to have unions. Obviously, I think they're trying to find a balance between creating an opportunity for a lot of athletes without unions. And so it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this over the next year, and whether this truly does become an advantage that schools like FAMU, Bethune, Florida Memorial, and EWC, can they take advantage? Can they get a leg up on some of the other competitors, not just HBCUs, but other PWIs in their respective areas?
One other thing on that, Brian. Will this increase the difference between the haves and the have-nots? Yeah, FAMU may have an advantage over an Alcorn State, who's in the same conference, who will be in the same conference once this gets legislated. But what about the difference between FAMU and UF, or Bethune and UCF? What kind of difference between the haves and the have-nots? Because the boosters and the people who may offer incentives for somebody who goes to the University of Tampa or UCF or USF is going to be different than somebody who offers something for Everett Waters.
But see, I think the incentives are already, the differences are already in place, and they come in the amount of extras. The kid who goes to Florida, he may get 3-4 pairs of shoes, several T-shirts and sweatsuits. The kid who goes to FAMU, he may only get 2 pairs of shoes, a couple of pairs of T-shirts, 1 sweatsuit. You see the difference? It's already, the differences between the haves and have-nots is already there. I don't think it's going to change because of, who is able to give money. I don't. I think it's already there because of the boosters, the amount of money that they're already giving. I could be wrong on this, but I think what could happen is if conferences, like we talk about what the SWAC is doing. For example, imagine the SWAC working out a deal with, say, the college athletes in their football program in conjunction with the universities and creating some sort of trading card mechanism where now they're going to actually have officially licensed trading cards featuring the top SWAC players, and so on and so forth. Imagine what that might look like. And now all of a sudden you created a new revenue stream that will go into this pot that all of the student athletes will get a chance to receive funds from. And of course, you'll send a little back to the conferences and you'll send a little back to the schools, but it's almost a win-win-win for all 3 groups. Just a thought. That's the thought I came up with. All right, let's move over to the next news and notes thing. And this one comes out of the NAIA with a little scheduling situation going on there, AD.
Yeah, the NAIA basically said you only get 9 games this year, not 11. So what has that done? Well, that's forced some teams to rethink their schedule. Some teams are only playing conference games only. Excuse me. And when you look at some schedules, you have some teams doing what is almost unheard of in football, playing the same team 2 times in 1 year on purpose. So, but let's take a look at the ones that affect our HBCUs. Well, we'll start off with one. Langston, I believe Langston Jackson State game this year has been canceled because of the schedule shift from the NAIA. Florida Memorial and Edward Waters were supposed to be playing each other. That game right now is set to be canceled. And in addition, there's a game between Edward Waters and Morehouse that has to be put on the shelf because they can't start until September 12th. The game between Morehouse and Edward Waters was scheduled September 5th, and neither one of them have a common open date on their schedule for the remainder of the year. I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Well, they do actually have a common date. November 14th is an open date for both schools, if I'm not mistaken.
Assuming Morehouse does not get to the conference championship game.
No, I'm saying between Edward Waters and Florida Memorial.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you talked about that on the Morehouse game. I'm sorry.
No, I don't. Well, because I think Edward Waters would lose the Morehouse game. So the thing is, Edward Waters is still an NAIA school playing a Division II schedule in the SIAC, and so the game against Morehouse is not a required game for EWC. So they're sort of, if I'm not, and I think I'm correct on this. If I'm wrong, I know we'll hear from some people on this. But since they can't start their season until the following week, that does sort of make that game against Morehouse, you got to move it, or you move it or lose it, basically. And so it kind of sucks for Morehouse. Right. But as it relates to the Florida Memorial EWC game, what's kind of interesting is that game was originally supposed to be September 12th. Then it got moved a month and a half ago to August 29th because of Florida Memorial's conference schedule. And so now what makes the open date is November 14th, which is actually a date that's open. But if Florida Memorial plays that game, AD, that means they're stuck in the middle of a long season with no bye weeks. Basically, you play.
Well, right now, nobody has a bye week.
Well, Florida Memorial does. November 14th. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, that would be the end of the schedule.
Well, yeah. They actually have a game. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember, I looked at the Florida Memorial schedule. If I'm not mistaken, they do have a game scheduled the week after, which is November 7th is their last game in the Mid-South. And I guess I don't know for sure if they're eligible for the conference or even the NAIA playoffs, but if they are, you would assume those kind of things take place the following week. So I think that's the thing. Florida Memorial's open week is actually October 31st. So that's their open week. So that's just one of the things that's affected the scheduling for that game. And we were looking forward to that game. That was going to be a big game for both schools. The rebirth of Florida Memorial's program, EWC, playing in their new stadium, all that kind of goes away, potentially, as it stands right now. You brought up something, AD. I'm sorry. Did you have one more? Did you one more thing you wanted to add on that before we move to the next news?
Oh, I was gonna say that from what I'm seeing, that auction only leaves both teams with 8 games. But there's still room if they can figure out to play that 9th game that they are both allowed. And Edward Waters has a lot more flexibility because they will not be going to anybody's playoffs because of their schedule versus Florida Memorial, who we're not 100% sure of whether they're eligible for playoffs or not.
I would bet. I'm just going to make a far out reach here. Assuming that we do have football and that they're playing the season, sometime by the middle of the season, maybe after 4 games, 5 games even.
Update, Brian. Update. I just pulled up Edward Waters' schedule, and there is the Florida Memorial game is scheduled for November 14th, according to EWCPride.com.
Okay.
At 1 p.m. at Florida Memorial.
Again, that's on EWC site, but not on Florida Memorial site. So,
according to EWCPride.com.
I think it all relates on what Florida Memorial, if they are eligible for the playoffs or the conference, and you kind of get a feel for that by early October, maybe mid-October, maybe they play that game. But if it looks like they have an opportunity, they're not going to schedule that game because that's probably going to run into the playoffs or the conference championship game. That's just, we'll kind of sit back and wait to see what happens, but we just wanted to bring that out. All right,
correct.
You talked about the opportunities of whether we have what's going to take a bigger hit, homecomings or classics. And it's sort of a conversation that I know you and I have talked about, or at least I know I brought it up to other people as well. What's going to happen to classics this upcoming year? And so just the other day on Friday, the athletic director, Roman Banks for Southern University, when speaking at the Southern University Board of Supervisors virtual meeting, he did make mention that the Bayou Classic, which this would be the 47th playing of the Bayou Classic, he did state that it will not be played in New Orleans in 2020, possibly 2021 as well. Now, he did present some alternatives that are still being discussed, and that includes playing that as a home game for Southern. Also, he talked about playing it at the Independence Stadium in Shreveport. I believe that's where the Independence Bowl is played, in Shreveport, Louisiana. And also made mention of playing it at Tiger Stadium where LSU plays. Of course, LSU is also in Baton Rouge right there with Southern. Obviously the Bayou Classic draws on a regular 65,000 plus fans. If I'm not mistaken, the size of the venue at Southern Stadium is in the 20s, mid-20s. You're probably in the 40s to 50s at the Independence Stadium. And, of course, LSU Stadium draws 100-something thousand in their stadium. So based on whatever those restrictions and guidelines are in Louisiana, I think that will dictate what happens to the Bayou Classic. What are your thoughts on the Bayou Classic changing its site and just maybe this is the first classic that has to really consider what it's going to do this upcoming season?
Honestly, I think probably the best move for the Classic would be to LSU, say, to Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge, assuming that you still had the normal 60,000 people that come to the Classic. That means that they could get all 60,000, well, close to 60,000 people in Tiger Stadium and still be socially distant and have a Classic similar to what you are used to. Once again, I'm assuming that people are able to actually show up to these events, capacity-wise. Here's the question. What are the New Orleans Saints doing? Because New Orleans Saints play in the same venue that the Bayou Classic is in. whatever plan the Saints have, this would be the first plan that the people at the Bayou need to look at and see how feasible that is. Because whatever the restrictions are in the city of New Orleans, they're going to apply for the Saints as well as for Tulane football, which uses that same venue, as well as the Classic, which all use that same venue. Then you make the appropriate decision. So,
yeah, but AD,
just by
the Saints own or these they're a major. I don't know what their agreement is. I don't know if they lease or how they own that stadium. But trust me, Southern, they're renting that stadium. They don't, that's the only time they play in that stadium. They have no, that they're renting that building. So while let's just say the NFL says there's no fans, the Saints could get away with that because they've got the backing of television money to be able to play that game in that stadium. There's nothing about social distancing with 60,000 people. Those two words don't even equate to me. When you say, hey, play that game at LSU Stadium, you can't social distance. I don't care if there's 40,000 empty seats. You can't social distance with 60,000 people. It's impossible. To me, unless you're going to ask people in certain sections to leave when the game's over, think about all the people that are going to be lined up in the breezeways and on the way out of the stadium. There's no way. You can't do social distancing with 60,000 people. I'm sorry, it's not possible.
Here's what you do, Brian. You sell the same ticket twice. You want to buy your ticket for the first half and halftime or the remainder portion of the game. Because after halftime, the stadium going to empty out anyway. And you can resell the same ticket and get some more people up in there. But all seriousness aside, the one classic that could get away with playing in a smaller venue is the Bayou Classic because they have the national TV contract with NBC. The way that this classic will not be the model for any other classic because outside of the VAC SWAC Challenge, there is no other classic that has a national TV contract. So they're kind of out there on the island. They could afford to go and play on campus in Southern. Let's also keep in mind, LSU may give that stadium to them for little to nothing. Think about it. They're playing Grambling and Southern in the upcoming years anyway. This may be a caveat to continue on that relationship. Okay, maybe they cut a little bit out of the check game that they're giving it to them, but Grambling and Southern are probably going to make that up if they're able to hold that event at Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, I tell you, man, the more and more you hear the discussions and think about where money's coming from, there's so much just uncertainty. I don't envy it. Again, I thought this 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and my thoughts are even more resolute. I do not envy being an athletic administrator right now. And God bless all of them who are out here making decisions to try to, one, stay alive, balance budgets and stay on budget, but then thirdly, trying to be concerned with and protect the safety and well-being of their student athletes and coaches. That's a heavy thing to deal with. All right, Eddie, we've gone long in this first segment. We need to take a break. We come back, we're going to get into talking a little bit of a few more news and notes. We're going to talk about a couple of recruiting stories in college basketball that have taken up some of the HBCU attention, or I should say it's putting attention on HBCU basketball with a couple of big-name recruits. And then we'll get into some other topics as well. We'll be back right after these words. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap on the Black College Sports Network.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Welcome back to the BCSN Sports Wrap. Brian Fulford and A.D. Drew here. Make sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Periscope, and you can find us on Facebook at BCSN1. And, of course, you can also find the BCSN Sports Wrap on Facebook. Just search BCSN Sports Wrap. And, of course, if you're watching our show on YouTube, make sure to like or subscribe to us, part of the Jericho Broadcast Network, networks. And you can actually, MyJBN Online is, of course, where we're at on YouTube. AD, we've got one more news and note story to hit up from that last segment. So why don't you go ahead and take that one?
Budget cuts. That's the best way I could put it. COVID-19 has led to people cutting some Olympic sports and non-revenue sports. The victim this time is Hampton University Golf, the Pirates. Not only men, but women. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this if teams can maintain the minimum number of sports that they need to remain in their classification, Division I, Division II, NAIA, and meet their Title IX compliance at the same time. They're going to start cutting the fluff out of their schedule due to out of their budgets due to COVID-19. This will save $600,000. So wait a minute, let me see. In order to bring both golf programs back to full strength, we would need $600,000, which will include operational budget, scholarships, and salaries. In order to reinstate the program for 2020-21 season, we would need approximately $352,000. To bring the entire athletics department back to normal, we would need an additional $1.4 billion, which also includes operational budget, scholarships, and salaries. And this was a quote from Hampton University. This article is from onadan.com.
Yeah, so Hampton is one of now 11 schools that have discontinued their golf programs, and the size of the schools in Division I vary. I mean, we're talking schools that come from quote unquote, a lot of power, which you might consider larger universities, some smaller universities, University of Akron, Appalachian State, Brown University, Central Michigan, University of Cincinnati, FIU, Furman, Old Dominion, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wright State. I mean, you've got a lot of programs that, and you think about the numbers, that a lot of these programs are spending in golf. And there's some programs who have been on the verge of closing or discontinuing, I should say, and it's alumni. I mean, fortunately, some of these programs who have wealthy enough donors or alumni are able to sort of save the program. And it had, when I saw this story, Drew, I got to thinking about, remember, I think it was maybe a year or two ago when Steph Curry made a pledge to financially help and support Howard University and the start of a golf program. You remember that story?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just got me to thinking about, the money that would take to get that going. And, we've seen, if it's not golf, it's tennis or it's cross country that's been hit. Another school, I recall Bowling Green was going to discontinue their baseball program, if I'm not mistaken, but it got saved by some alumni that chose to find the money to keep the baseball program. So a lot of schools are dealing with this, and like you said, it's the non-generating sports that take the big hit here, and you hate to see it for Hampton, and you hope that you'd like to think that maybe there's a donor out there or maybe an alum that can financially provide, and if he or she is out there, man, it'd be great if they were able to give up nearly $500,000, or maybe was it 1.4 as the article stated, 1.4 to help them. Yeah, 1.4 to keep the budget going, man. So that's something. That's a tough call, but you can chalk that up to hashtag COVID-19 strikes again. All right, let's move into a couple of recruiting stories, AD, that have been that have taken place over the past week or two in the grassroots world, and they have come home to really be a big benefit for HBCUs. Of course, right now, in these particular times, there seems to be a heightened awareness, or there is a heightened sense of, a lot of student athletes wanting to be a part of HBCUs. And more recently, a young man by the name of Mikey Williams, who is one of the top recruits in the class of 2023. He is a 5-star player on ESPN 25. He's a shooting guard, listed as the number 1 shooting guard in that class, the number 2 guard. I believe he's number 3 overall. So I think the number 1 kid on that ESPN 25, I believe, is a point guard. And that's the only reason why Mikey Williams is listed. And he's 6'1", from San Ysidro High School in California. So he played this past year as a freshman. And he is generating a lot of buzz lately, as, he sent out a tweet. I believe that tweet happened sometime in, I want to say April or May, maybe early May, where he stated in a tweet, going to an HBCU wouldn't be too bad. That's all the tweet said. And one tweet sent everything on fire, so to speak. And from that one tweet, Mikey Williams, who I believe he has almost 2 million Instagram followers, and probably has quite a large following on Twitter. I didn't look up his latest stats on Twitter, but the impact that a young man like that has is tremendous. I mean, he also has a blog that runs on SportsIllustrated.com, SI.com. He's in the middle of doing an overtime show. Well, essentially, once he sent that tweet, all of a sudden he sort of put into the universe that, you know what, my family went to an HBCU. His mother went to Hampton, played softball at Hampton, and he basically served notice that, you know what, HBCUs, I'm considering, I'm open to the idea. And sure enough, as soon as he did that, outside of offers that he already had from big name programs like Arkansas, Arizona State, USC, Kansas, Memphis, Oregon, UCLA. I mean, those are some blue blood programs, or big Power 5 programs. All of a sudden, by the last check I had, AD, he's gotten scholarship offers from Norfolk State, Tennessee State, Grambling, Howard, even Morehouse, Florida A&M, North Carolina Central, Hampton, of course, where his mother went, Alabama State, Texas Southern, UAPB, and Southern. I may have left somebody off that list, but damn near every Division I HBCU has offered, and rightfully so, they should. And that's an amazing stat when you think about what could be for a young man like Mikey Williams, who really, AD, you're familiar as I am with how sort of the process works. A lot of kids don't start receiving attention and scholarship offers until maybe after the sophomore year, sometime around the junior year. Here's a young man who's got technically 3 years left of high school already with well over 24 offers. What are your thoughts on Mikey Williams and just the recruiting buzz that is surrounding him and HBCU basketball?
I got to get the homer part of this out of the way first, Brian. Mr. Williams, FAMU has the largest basketball arena in HBCU basketball with just under 10,000. It is the one arena that has the capacity for you to play on TV with good sight lines, good facilities, good weight room, good training room, et cetera, et cetera. Now that I've gotten the homer portion of it out of the way, the question of the day, Brian, honestly, will he even have to go to an HBCU? Will he even have to go to college by the time he comes out? Because the NBA labor agreement is up before this kid will become eligible. Will he even have to do the one and done, or if they take it to a two and done, or will they go back to old school LeBron days, KG days, where you could go straight from high school to the pros, or will he take the option that some are starting to take now? Go to this. The G League has a team, a dedicated team for fresh out of high school instead of playing college, or even still go overseas and come back and then do a pro contract. He has more options than HBCUs. Now, don't get me wrong. I would love to see him at somebody's HBCU, but he has options. Everything is going to change within 3 years.
Yeah.
The momentum that HBCUs are getting may change in the 3 years. If he was class of 2021, I would really be excited about this. But he's class of 23. Long time between now and 2023.
So you don't think so when you see the sort of buzz that I find it interesting seeing articles and quotes from players like Carmelo Anthony and other guys who, I mean, Carmelo Anthony, of course, went to Syracuse. I believe Carmelo was from the Baltimore area, went to Syracuse for a year. I don't know if, Carmelo, when he was in college, was considering Coppin State or Morgan State as options, but I applaud. Well, I don't want to say applaud. Let me just say this. I find it interesting. I still find it interesting seeing the love and respect that guys are giving him. I, like you, though, think we all have to sort of be a little cautious about getting too excited because of the fact that he is so far away from, like you said, that deciding year. And I like you, I think the NBA will move to a model similar to baseball, or they'll open it back up. Well, they'll allow guys of Mikey's caliber. I mean, imagine if he's where he is now, Lord willing, he stays healthy and his game continues to flourish. I mean, without a doubt, he'll continue to be one of the top guys on the grassroots circuit. But so I think for him, he's not likely to end up at an HBCU. I just don't think he'll end up playing in college if his track stays on the way it is. But does it put HBCUs in the minds of other guys? And sort of, here's the advantage, disadvantage. Let me say this before we move forward a little bit. There are only 19 Division I HBCUs, right? Versus, 70. I would say when you consider power college basketball programs?
23 basketball programs, Brian.
23 Division I basketball programs?
Currently, you have 10 in the SWAC.
Right.
You have 11 in the 11 in the BAC currently, and then you've got Hampton, Tennessee State.
Okay, so 23. You got 23 spots, 23 programs versus 3 times that many power programs at PWIs. Do the math here in terms of the numbers and where these players are going to go, how many available spots. You know, it's great that these guys are considering. That's what you want. And so I just think we got to be cautious about being too optimistic for Mikey Williams, but Mikey Williams opens the door for other guys. And one of those guys that he might have opened the door for is a guy like Nate Tabor, who's a 4-star kid who just recently signed with Norfolk State. You know, any other thoughts on Mikey? Say again.
Bryan James is in that same class.
Yeah, Bronny James is in that same class. Yeah, and so I mean, look, if those guys are able to come out. Say again.
I believe Scottie Pippen's son is in that same class also.
Scottie Pippen's son, can he play? I don't know.
I think him and Bronny are on the same team.
Okay. Well, look, I don't know. Let me move forward to the next story because here's the thing. Go ahead. Finish the thought on Mikey Williams, and we can move over to Nate Tabor. Finish the thought.
Well, let's move over to Nate Tabor because what I got to say is kind of related to both of these kids.
Okay, so Nate Tabor, for those who don't know, Nate Tabor recently signed with Norfolk State this past week. Now, he's a ESPN 4-star player from Queens, New York. He's 6'6", 205. He also had offers from schools like Auburn, Connecticut, LSU, Texas Tech. He was rated number 32 in the East region and number 38 among small forwards in the country. He was also number 2 in the state of Connecticut by ESPN after his junior season. Now, Tabor did not play his senior season at Sacred Heart in Waterbury, Connecticut. His junior year was at Sacred Heart High in Waterbury. He attended South Shore High School in Brooklyn, New York for his senior year, but he didn't play. I don't have any information. I don't know if that was due to injury or something else. I know he averaged 18.5, just under 7 rebounds, 3.5 assists in his junior year when he was at Sacred Heart High School in Waterbury. But just the fact that you have a 4-star talented kid, 6'6", signing for Norfolk State, that's a big deal. And this is Coach Robert Jones. Now, what's funny, Norfolk State has a great group of guys apparently coming back. And, of course, they finished 12-4 in the MEAC in the regular season. They were actually, I believe, on their way to the semifinals of the conference tournament, if I'm not mistaken. So they have a very good squad returning. But this is Coach Robert Jones, where he said, today is a good day for Spartan basketball. As the talk of a culture shift in college sports has become relevant recently, Nate Tabor has decided to start that shift. It is not every day we or other HBCUs get a top 100 player. So I feel like that's the effect of Mikey Williams, somebody who put the attention on HBCUs. A guy like Nate Tabor ends up signing, and there may be other guys who may not be the top 10, top 5 guys, but he's a top 100 player. And that might be the kind of change that really takes HBCU schools to the next level, especially when they get into these regular season games or even into the tournament. Your thoughts?
And this is why I wanted to hold this to after you talked about both of these kids. What it's going to take, Bryan, in order for, first of all, you really have to sit back and wonder, is this the new in thing that's going to be a fad? Is this just like Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat? Is this the new in thing? Say I'm going to HBCU, going to an HBCU. Is this really the new in thing? Or will this be a sustained move? Will that momentum continue? That's number one. Number two, if this can become a sustained movement, will these kids who go to these HBCUs still get the same perceived opportunities post HBCU that they fear they get by attending a PWI? Meaning, when is the last time somebody has been drafted? We're gonna stick with basketball. When is the last time somebody's been drafted from an HBCU in basketball? I don't know. I don't have that information in front of me. I don't know off the top of my head.
What did it be? The young man from Shaw, like just the other day or just the other year, right? When he drafted in the second round.
Second round.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, there's only two. There's only 60 draft spots in the NBA anyway. So that's the one thing you got to remember.
Correct. But and when I say this is perception now, we're talking strictly perception. Will their perception be that I would have gotten a higher draft pick if I would have went to a PWI versus going to an HBCU if I even get drafted at all? Just things that these young men are thinking about. But where the shift is going to really occur is not going to be the kids. It's going to be the parents and the grandparents who happen to be alum of HBCUs, pushing their kids back towards the HBCU. Or even better, the grandparent went to an HBCU. The child who may or may not have been an athlete, the dad, the mom, went to a PWI and did not enjoy the experience, pushed their child to go back to the HBCU that grandma and grandpa went to. Just some different factors, but it's going to take more than just the kid going with the current fad to get this to go. But if we could get 4 or 5 at any HBCU, I don't care what it is. If you get 4 or 5 star athletes with a 2 or with a 3-star there, you know, these games will be on ESPN and CBS and ABC as much as the SEC network.
You know what? I hear you make that point, and that's an interesting thought. And I instantly, as I heard you say that, I'm thinking, okay, the dreaded level of competition question is something that's going to come up. But I feel like that always gets answered in basketball because there are enough cases of whether it be international players or whether it be players. I mean, we just watched The Last Dance. I mean, we watched Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. I mean, Scottie Pippen was drafted 5th overall out of Central Arkansas? Something like that. I mean, I think that now is a Division II program. NAIA. Yeah, NAIA program. So basketball, the advantage of a guy like Mikey Williams, if he chose, because he's played against top-level talent through his EYBL program, which is the Compton Magic, guys like Nate Tabor, who have been on the circuit as top 100 guys, they played against the top talent and their peers, maybe even the class above or below. They've been to these camps. Scouts have seen them. They know their game. So because HBCUs have to play top-tier talent in the non-conference schedule, they sort of get to go up against at least 7, maybe even 6 D1 programs, you know? And so their worth is already there. It's already on tape. It's not going to get worse. You're not, you know what I'm saying? I don't feel like you're going to get worse because you go to an HBCU. And I think you're seeing now with programs like Norfolk State, where they've beaten Division I team at the the NIT in the first round, where they beat Alabama. You've seen Lavelle Moulton at North Carolina Central have success. FAMU, where they recently beat Iowa State on the road. You got NBA caliber guys coming in coaching at HBCU now. Mo Williams most recently. Sean Woods, who's at Southern. Lindsey Hunter, where's he at? Mississippi Valley State.
I thought it was Mississippi Valley State.
Mississippi Valley State.
Or was it Jackson State?
No, Mississippi Valley State. So those credentials are there, and the opportunities are there. And if your name is big enough, the television people will come to those games. They come to high school games because of your names. You know what I'm saying? They already come to high school games because of a kid's name that he built up over the summer. You know, trust me, in a couple of years, when Mikey Williams and Bronny James decide to play together at Sierra Canyon or wherever, because trust me, I'm calling that now. That's going to happen in probably 2 years. You watch. Don't you think there's going to be – well, ESPN already had a bunch of Sierra Canyon games on TV this whole year. They were on TV more than some Division I programs.
When they played LeBron's old high school, St. Francis St. Mary.
Right. But they had a television deal where all their games were on TV. So that's already happening.
Right.
I just think you just think about a guy like, and I'll leave it like this. Think about Zion Williamson. Okay. Zion Williamson, I didn't know this. His parents went to Livingstone College. Can you imagine? Zion Williamson, he didn't need Duke. You knew he was going to be a number 1, 2, or 3 draft pick if you saw what he was doing his senior year in high school or on the grassroots circuit. You knew Zion Williamson was going to spend 1 year somewhere and then go to the NBA, right? You knew that. Imagine if he would have gone to Livingstone College in the CIAA. Can you imagine what that would have been like? He didn't need Duke, right? Livingstone would have. What kind of benefits might Livingstone have gotten from having a Zion Williamson? And then when he gets drafted number 1, that's the next step. So maybe it is Mikey Williams. Maybe he'll go to an HBCU, spend a year, and bring all of the attention with him. But that's one scenario. But the other scenario is what it does. It brings guys like Nate Tabor to a good program like Norfolk State. And now it's up to Norfolk State, the MEAC, the SWAC, for them to put their product in places where more people can see it, promote it the right kind of way, and so on and so forth. And that's how you continue to take advantage of this culture shift back towards paying attention to HBCUs. Yeah?
Yeah. One last thing, you talked about level of competition. Nobody talked about the level of competition when Butler made it to the finals a few years ago. When what was it, James Madison? What was that? What was that school that made it to the Final Four in like 2006? George Mason. Yeah. You know, nobody talked about the competition that they played in season. Can you put together that 5 to 6 game run in March? That's the only thing that matters when it comes to level of competition.
Yeah, but who off of George Mason was a number 1, 2, 3 draft pick? Hell, but I mean, Gordon Hayward wasn't even a top. I don't even think he was a lottery pick off of Butler. I mean, he got drafted, but I don't know. I can't recall if he was a lottery pick. I know he got drafted in the first round, but I get what you're saying, though. I didn't mean to discredit what you were saying. I just, I understand where you were going. All right, look, we've got to take another break because coming up in the next segment is our interview with Michael Coker from BlackCollegeNines.com. And, of course, the Major League Baseball had their draft. We're going to talk with him about that, as well as what's been going on in HBCU Baseball, Major League Baseball, all of the things that are affecting it. And, it's a good conversation. I think you'll like it. And if you've never visited the site, we want to encourage you to go check out BlackCollegeNines.com. And so coming up after this segment break, our conversation with Michael Coker, and then we'll come back to sort of wrap up the show with a few closing notes and a little fond retrospect to a fallen Rattler. So make sure to stay tuned. You're watching the BCSN Sports Wrap on the Black College Sports Network.
It's like a loop machine.